Good afternoon, my Real News Midday TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update. And in the news this afternoon, death of Chinese businessman highlights the need for older causeway bridge restrictions. The tragic death of a Chinese businessman on Sunday morning has prompted urgent calls for senior police officers for the permanent closure of the older causeway bridge to recreational fishing, as law enforcement officials warn that the location continues to pose a deadly risk to the public. The deceased has been identified as 62-year-old Jing Wang of Hopefield Avenue, Kingston 10. Police reported that about 10:05 a.m., Jing had been fishing with relatives along the bridge when it began to rain. He reportedly returned to his motor car and attempted to execute a U-turn when the vehicle plunged over the edge of the bridge into the sea. His motionless body was recovered hours later through the rescue efforts of the Marine Police, Coast Guard, the Jamaica Fire Brigade, and the private divers. The crumbled motor car was also removed. At the scene, Sergeant Canute Nair from the Marine Police said repeated warnings about the danger of fishing in the sea have gone unheeded. We would have come here and told these same people this is a restricted area, no fishing, but they disobeyed, doing their own recreational fishing, the sergeant recalled, while pointing out that he was unsure whether Jing had been part of that previous group of Chinese nationals. They are fishing on the bridge, they are not wearing any vest. And if he had a life vest, we don't know if it would have made a difference, as he was in the car. But they don't wear vest. They don't do anything to protect themselves more than throw the rocks, and sometimes fish pull them in the water. Nair stressed that Jing is not the first to lose his life in the area and will not be the last unless something is done. Consequently, he appealed for the area to be permanently restricted to the public. It is a danger to persons who want to fish, he said, while noting that although the area is on private property, no one should be fishing there. We have dragged many bodies that have floated to this area because of mishaps during fishing. So please, I am begging persons to be cautious, he said. The sergeant noted further that the police do not have the resources to patrol the area continuously. Assistant Commissioner of Police Christopher Phillips, who oversees Area 5, also expressed similar calls for the area to be restricted to the public. There are no railings to the side, and so it poses a serious risk. So it's something that the authorities would want to look into, and that would require us to restrict that area until it is safe for persons to venture into that space, he said. In the meantime, Phillips said an investigation will be launched into the incident to determine what truly happened. It sounds very bizarre how things happened, so we will want to be satisfied that we don't have something else dealing with, he said. Meanwhile, family members and friends broke down in tears as they watched in horror and disbelief while his lifeless body was pulled from the sea. A woman who was pointed out as his sister was inconsolable as she wailed and was tasked with removing blood from his injured face moments before the body was removed from the scene. Others were observed fighting back tears, while some sank to the ground, overwhelmed with the weight of the tragedy. Among those gathered were not just relatives, but staff from Jing's Kingston-based business, who remembers him as a very nice, easygoing and a quiet employer. The staff said they were shocked and deeply saddened by the incident. "We couldn't believe when we get the call," said one worker, who sometimes accompanied Wang on the fishing trips. "Yesterday me and him talk and today him gone. It shocked me, man." PSOJ advocates press the government after OSC chooses secrecy in FID top job saga. The private sector organization of Jamaica says it is more than reasonable for Jamaicans to know why the law enforcement requirement for the Financial Investigations Division's top job was dropped after a government body claimed the information is private. At the same time, there is also a call for Prime Minister Andrew Holness and his cabinet to intervene to support the release of the information and ensure that public bodies respect Jamaicans' constitutional right to information and the need for scrutiny of official decisions. While acknowledging the need to protect personal information, PSOJ President Mitri Siaga agreed that the public has a right to understand why the requirements for a critical state job were changed. Chartered accountant Dennis Chung, who was appointed earlier this month as boss of the Financial Crimes Investigation Agency, does not have law enforcement experience. If a minimum requirement was changed for a position, would it be reasonable, you think, that the country know what led to that change at the very least? Siaga was asked. Yeah, I do think so, yeah. That's more than reasonable, replied Siaga, who also disclosed that the lobby group, which represents close to 300 of the country's corporate firms and individuals, has written to the Office of the Services Commissions seeking clarity on the appointment process to remove the mystery around it. Siaga said he continues to support Chung's appointment, but emphasized that the PSOJ just want to make sure that the process was handled completely as it should have been. I think it is important that we take away the mystery around it. I don't think there's any mystery around it. I think there are good reasons, but sometimes people are afraid to speak to the press. I think that they should be as transparent as possible without disrupting anybody's privacy, he told the news yesterday. The Sunday Gleaner reported that the OSC, the Secretariat for the Commissions that hired certain public servants, denied the newspapers access to information requests for records explaining the removal of the minimum requirement for 12 years law enforcement experience, including 5 at a senior level. The original post, advertised in November 2024, included that experience requirement. Retired Deputy Police Commissioner Fitzbailey, who had been selected in the first round, declined the offer on January 21, 2025. 2 days later, the OSC re-advertised the post, but this time without the law enforcement requirement. Chung was later appointed on June 2 under a 2-year, $13.9 million annual contract. His appointment has faced strong resistance from the parliamentary opposition and the civil society groups. They charge that he is conflicted because of public comments he made about a report by the Integrity Commission following its investigation into the Prime Minister's finances. That report was referred to the FID. Concerns have now heightened, particularly due to the secrecy surrounding the change in criteria. The refusal to disclose who authorized the change or why has also sparked outrage and the fresh warnings of a deepening crisis of trust in Jamaica's democratic and governance institutions. It's a call to the cabinet, argued the businessman Howard Mitchell, a former PSOJ president and the founding chairman of the Jamaica Accountability Meter portal. Theoretically, we are supposed to be governed by a cabinet, but it is the Prime Minister and the cabinet to say that transparency is essential to effective management. He added the conclusion you have to come to is to say that people have something to conceal or people are playing games with the truth. The political directorate of the state needs to look at this thing and say, even if it is the bureaucrats that are withholding information in an overly zealous fashion, we need to step in and encourage them to release it in our own interest and in the interest of the wider society. Pointing to low voter turnout in national elections, Mitchell said the OSC's actions threaten to further erode trust. If your constituents don't understand what you are doing, don't buy into what you're doing, or have a low level of trust in what you are doing will not be as effective. In a similar rejection of the OSC's actions, Daniel Archer, Principal Director of National Integrity Action, declared that access to information is not a luxury, it is a democratic right. Efforts to suppress it, particularly in matters of public interest, are not isolated missteps. They are symptoms of creeping authoritarianism, she asserted. If trust you, I'm in a certain way you are behind curtain, Archer asked, quoting recording artist Chronics. This is the question now echoing across the public sphere. Without openness, confidence collapses, not just in individuals, but in the systems meant to protect the public good. When both government and oversight bodies conceal information on appointments linked to ongoing investigations, it marks a dangerous erosion of accountability. Solicitor General Marlene Aldred from the Attorney General's chambers responded to the ATI request on the OSC's behalf on Friday. She disclosed that public access to nearly all the requested documents that could explain the actions of the public officials involved in the process has been denied. She cited legal exemptions under Section 17BI and 22 of the ATI Act, which refer to breaches of confidence and disclosures of personal information, respectively. However, the PSOJ head and Mitchell expressed a concern that a failure to explain the change could erode public trust in Chung and the FID. Seoga said yes, absolutely, when asked whether the non-disclosure could affect public confidence in the FID head. I think it is going to make the job of the Financial Investigations Division more difficult, said Mitchell. It's going to make Chung's leadership of that division more difficult. The FID, a department of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, is charged with investigating major financial crimes, including fraud, money laundering, and asset forfeiture. Its leadership is seen as critical to public confidence in financial governance. In a May 30 statement, Finance Minister Favour Williams insisted the recruitment process was transparent. She did not address the changes to the job requirement. While the process for changing job requirements remains unclear, it emerged in a recent case that the National Land Agency had to seek permission from the Ministry of Finance before removing a mandatory requirement for a senior post. The ministry ultimately blocked the attempt after an audit by its corporate management and establishment branch. The June 3 ATI request sought official correspondence, directives, and/or records of communication related to the decision to remove the law enforcement requirement from the second advertisement. It also requested the name of the individual or office that authorized or recommended the change, minutes, memos, or other records of discussion where the change was discussed, the current job description for the post, Chung's contract, and any assessment or evaluation reports generated during the selection process. The only documents released were a redacted contract signed by Chung and a redacted score sheet dated March 12, 2025, reflecting 4 shortlisted candidates under the revised criteria. Bailey's offer and rejection were also confirmed in partially disclosed emails. Guys, thank you for watching. See you this evening at 6 p.m. for another news update.